Hey, well, good morning, everyone. This is Anita Rawls calling in from my office here in Houston, Texas, and it is Monday morning, April the 25th, 2022. And I just want to say welcome, everyone, for taking time out of your schedule to come to our call this morning. And it is my pleasure that I get to introduce our super affiliate, Chris Robinson. He's always the MC announcing and being on stage and doing all of that. So it's a little challenging here for me to be able to introduce such a great person here, the great Chris Robinson. But anyway, Chris, I'm going to turn the call over to you. And I've asked you just to run through in 3 to 5 minutes the slides. And then I have a list of questions here to ask. And we're going to open it up, though, with my friend Rick, which is what we centered the call around to start with. So, Chris, over to you if you want to start the slides. Welcome.
Awesome. Well, first of all, good morning, everybody. If you're not in America, good afternoon or good evening. Seems like there's people from all over the world on these calls all the time. So welcome to Monday morning, and happy Monday, by the way. Did you say April 25th?
Yes. Can you believe
My
that?
Lord, where did April go? I'll be out to North Carolina this week. I think I'm going to see Lynn. Yeah, it's coming up. Here we go. So anyways, yeah, just welcome everybody to the call. And Anita, thank you so much for inviting me to be on and putting this together. I appreciate all you do. So yeah, I'm a good boy. I can do what I'm told. So I'm just going to go through the slides. There's a lot of slides, but I'll try to do 3 to 5 minutes. And then definitely I want to get to Q&A and get all your questions answered. So if you do want like a full presentation on these slides that I'm about to share, get a hold of whoever invited you here. They can definitely get you recordings. We've done them a couple of times. So here we go. If I can get this screen share to work. Can you see that okay, Anita?
Yes, go ahead. Perfect. Perfect.
Awesome. All right. So Fuel Faxtor X, or FFX, it's actually a product that myself, I've personally used for over 14 years. Just a little tiny bit of background as I'm going to hurry here. Over my life, over the last 22 years, I've owned and still do large construction companies, ranching, farming. I used to have 16 or 17 over-the-road trucks running refrigerated or flatbed stuff all around the lower 48. So I'm no stranger to buying fuel, and I'm no stranger to knowing the pain when fuel prices double and triple overnight, like what we're experiencing right now with without an end in sight as far as getting them back down to, remember the good old $1.80 days, like, I don't know, 90 days ago or so? It's just been a crazy, yeah, it wasn't that long ago. It's just been a crazy thing. And one of the awesome parts about My Daily Choice and the opportunity we have as affiliates at My Daily Choice is we're always poised to pivot. No matter what's going on in the world, our CEO and founder, Josh Swagel, will find a way to position us as business partners to be in front of trends. And that's exactly what's going on with FFX. I will say over my lifetime, we've sold hundreds of millions of dollars of this stuff all over the world. And what you can expect to see from Fuel Faxtor X is you're going to see a reduction in emissions. You're going to see a prolonged engine life on the top end of your engines, enhanced performance, and the big one, improves fuel economy. And right now, everybody's looking for a way to save on fuel, but also a big trend that's not going away is the green factor. And if you really just think about it, if you improve fuel economy, then that means there's less product to be able to go out the tailpipe. So you're automatically going to reduce emissions. Everybody is aware they want to do something to be green, but not many people are willing to pay to do it, right? Now you can save money and go green, plus the other benefits of the engine life and the horsepower improvement. Now, one thing I want to impress upon everybody, this is not a fuel additive. A fuel additive is something that you add to the fuel, which you do put this in your fuel, but it changes, an additive will change the specs of the fuel. Our fuel treatment does not, and it does way more than just one thing. Most fuel additives have one benefit. Ours has 7. And again, you can expect to see the prolonged engine life. And that's really where this product came from, because back in the 70s when it was actually invented, so this product's been around for decades, literally like 5 now. Fuel was, I don't know what it was, maybe 20 cents, 10 cents. So it wasn't a real big savings in the fuel department, but these companies that have massive engines in the mining and construction worlds, they have to tear their engines down and rebuild them every so many 100,000 miles or so many hours. And they were able to double that time in between their intervals of having to rebuild these. Some of these engines cost six figures, multiple six figures to redo, and now they were able to double that. So there's just a ton of benefit. This is probably a question I get all the time. I get asked all the time, Chris, will FFX work in? And if that question starts with that, the answer is yes. If you ask, and does it work in cars? Yes. Does it work in gas? Yes. Does it work in diesel? Yes. I get asked a lot, does it work in propane? Propane, it does work, but you have to inject it in under pressure. By the time you get all that figured out, you're probably not saving much money with the apparatuses you got to put on. But if you have a diesel engine, this propane assist absolutely works. And the reason why it works in both is, again, like I said before, we're not changing fuel specifications. So if you look at gasoline, octane, or diesel cetane, we're not changing any of that. So that's why this treatment works in every single application you can imagine. These are just a few examples. So FFX does work in any combustible engine. This is what really makes us different. If you go to the store, and this is why I say we're a treatment, not an additive, you would literally have to go buy 7 or 8 different products, combine them in your tank to achieve what 1/4 ounce, that much right there is all it takes to treat 20 gallons of fuel. Really, I mean, if you look at my finger, you're literally spitting your gas tank, but it's because it's a chemical reaction, right? It's not an additive again. You put it in, there's a chemical reaction in the fuel, and that's what this organometallic compound does that you see at the top of the screen here. Organometallic, actually, the gentleman that invented it in the 70s won the Nobel Prize for the chemistry that he founded and built to make this work. To put it real simple, the way the product works is when you add it to your fuel, the chemical reaction creates what we call atomization of fuel cells. So it makes your fuel cells smaller. So it's just like when you light a fire, you start with smaller logs and work your way up to bigger ones because smaller ignites sooner. There's less surface area. So by making a fuel cell smaller, it ignites a few hundred degrees sooner, extends the length of burn of a fuel cell, turning more fuel into power and less out the tailpipe. There's a whole bunch of science we could talk about for 5 hours on this, but just to keep it simple, that's how it works. And then again, there's lubricants in it, which, gasoline now has ethanol in it. Ethanol has been proven to dry out your engine. So adding lubricants inside your gasoline engines, which this product does, will definitely help you extend the working life of your engine. Detergents, which keep your engine clean all the time. And then as you get into like bulk storage, which I know there's some people on this call with those questions, the polymerization retardants, they actually help when stored fuel tanks. If you have big tanks, you'll notice you get some sludge and different stuff in the bottom of your tank. This helps keep that broken down so that doesn't happen. Rust and corrosion inhibitors, which is big in the marine world as well as in storage tanks to keep rust and corrosion out of your fuel system, including your fuel lines. Demulsifiers, which keeps the water out of your fuel, and then a fuel stabilizer. You can actually keep fuel good for years in a storing scenario. And I will say, lawnmowers, different things that are seasonal, when you put them away in the winter, a lot of times you pull them out and you're cleaning carbs and trying to get them to run again because that fuel set all winter. If it's treated with FFX, you don't have that problem no more. Real quick, you can expect to see 4 different things when you try FFX. You're either going to see a straight up improvement in your first tank or 2, then you're going to see it playing off at your optimum result level. You could see it go up and then down and then go up, or you could see a gradual up or even a dip and then up. And the reason for that really simply is we don't know what kind of fuel you've ran in your tank. You probably don't even know what kind of fuel you ran in your tank. We don't know what your fuel system looks like. By the time everything gets working in there, if you have a real dirty engine, it could take a little bit of time to see improvement. So we just like people to know that up front, because a lot of times people will go and they'll try one tank and like, man, I actually lost fuel economy. This doesn't work. But if we just tell you up front, and I will say most of the time it's number 1 at like 70% of the time, but for the other 30% of different things, we want to make sure we included them in here. So those are all just frequently asked questions. So let's get to your questions.
Okay, well, good. Thank you for that quick overview there. So Rick Hickson, are you unmuted there? Because we created this call for Rick. And so I know he owns a trucking company. And so Rick, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you ask Chris your questions, first of all.
Okay, can you hear me okay, Anita?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Very good. Thank you for the time. Thanks to Chris for explaining that. You've answered some of my questions initially. For over there, you said you're on over-the-road trucks, so you have some experience with that. What do you estimate the increase in your fuel mileage will be with the FFX product?
So I'll tell you exactly how I did mine, because I believe if you're doing manual testing, you can get different results. So before I started promoting this product real hard 13 or 14 years ago, I actually paid a company to come in and monitor the exhaust coming out of all of my equipment at my trucks. So we took 5 trucks. We did what's called a carbon mass balance test, where they measure the soot coming out of the exhaust pipe, which they can use all their scientific data to decide how much is wasted fuel and how much is burnt fuel. And it was a 6-month test. I mean, it cost a lot of money. They flew in from out of state a few different times to test these test vehicles. And at the end of that test, I had seen a 13.4% improvement in fuel economy across that fleet. Now, I tell most people 10% just because I know I'm low. Because if I tell you 13.4 and you see 13, I lied, right? But if I tell you 10 and you see 13, I'm a hero. So I just tell everybody 10% is what you can expect. And also during that carbon mass balance testing that I did, I seen a 31.2% reduction in the emissions.
Yeah, but that's one of the things, that now we have the engines with the emission system where they have to run the DEF fuel additive, and then you have the trucks that are exempt, which are the trucks prior to being manufactured in 2000, the year 2020.
Yep.
So you've got the older engines that do not require the DEF, and you got the new ones. Have anybody talked to engine manufacturers, the Cummins or the Mack, the PACCAR, the Volvo, or anybody to see what it does to their warranty, if anything? Have they signed off on anything?
Yeah, so let's talk about the DEF part real quick, because I get this question a lot, and then we'll talk about warranty. The DEF, I get asked all the time, can I get rid of DEF? No, you cannot. Your truck won't run if you get rid of DEF. DEF is a completely separate tank. It's called diesel exhaust fluid. It's actually synthetic urine, if you want to get technical, that sprays into your diesel particulate filter, which reburns your carbons, which cleans up the air. That's what you see in newer diesel vehicles. Using FFX, you'll actually notice you're going to about double your regen cycles before you regen, because when that diesel particulate gets full from exhaust coming out, that's when that regen system kicks on, burns all the carbons inside there again, then sends them out the tailpipe. By cleaning up those emissions, your diesel particulate filter is not getting full as fast as it used to. So did that make sense, Rick?
Yes.
Okay, as far as warranty goes, there's 2 things. The first thing I will say is we have an ASTM test on our website that shows we do not change fuel specifications, which is what I talked about earlier, which means no, it does not void warranty. I know there's owner's manuals that says do not use additives, do not do this, always run high octane, et cetera, et cetera. But 1, we're exempt because we don't change fuel specifications. And 2, you can dip a fuel tank and not even find this in there, because again, we're not boosting octane or cetane, which is what voids your warranties. We're increasing the burn rate. So by not changing fuel specs, no, we do not void warranties. And I'll say this too, there was actually an act of Congress, and you can Google this, called the Magnuson-Moss Act. And it simply states that an engine manufacturer cannot void warranties based upon any aftermarket product or part, meaning a computer chip or something like that, unless they can prove that that caused the failure. Because that's what protects like Bully Dog and all the chip companies, right? And all these companies, all the tuners and things like that. So it's actually against the law for them to do it, one, unless they prove that you were the case. But even during an engine failure, which I've never seen this product cause any issues, even if somebody tried to point at FFX, they could never find in the fuel to tell us it was our problem, because they could take the fuel out of the tank, test it, burn it. They're going to see that the fuel's burning right. There's no increased cetane or octane. So we're good on warranty. That was a long answer, but the answer is no, they can't void your warranty.
Okay. The other question was, and you may have answered that also, is the long-term effect on an engine after you use the FFX?
Yeah, the long-term effect is you're going to see that you're actually able to spread out your service intervals. For example, I used to have an F-150 that I ran around as my day runner to my construction sites and stuff. And you change oil every 5,000 miles. And the Ford store here, and where I live in Idaho, every time you take your truck in for service, they drop a drop of fluid out of the rear diff, the front diff, the engine oil, so you can see what it looks like and if it needs change, and they have charts that compare it. My oil, they asked me, our sticker is wrong. It looked like we changed your oil less than 1,000 miles ago. And I said, nope, it's not wrong. Your sticker's right. And so we monitored that at the Ford store here in town for a year or so with different things. And the engine oil is so much cleaner, still has so much viscosity, because you get a lot less blow by, your top end's running a lot better, and it just takes care of that as well. So long-term effects is you're going to extend the working life of that engine.
Okay. How, the next question is, on over-the-road truck, most of them will hold around 300 gallon, but the driver will stop and fill up when it takes about 200 gallon. So the question is, how often do you use this product, and do you use it every time? And it's going to be a guesstimate on how much fuel they're going to take.
Yeah, so you absolutely use it every time. If you're going to put it into your drivers, you're going to need to train them how to use it. That's what I did with mine. What I will say is this right here, this little bottle in my hand treats 320 gallons. Dump it in a semi. You're overdosing 20 or 30 gallons, but you really can't overdose the product. You can't put too much in.
Okay, what does it cost?
So this bottle right here is going to cost $59, but it treats 320 gallons. So let's do the math on that. 320 gallons. What's your average fuel price?
Right now, the national average last week was $5.10.
Okay, so 5.10 times 320, going to cost you $1,632 worth of fuel for $59 worth of treatment. So you times that by just 10%, basically $59 is saving you $164. And this, by the way, is about as expensive as you can buy. We have bulk stuff coming down the road that will make it cheaper.
Okay.
So you basically triple your money, maybe even 4x your money, which is better than I've been able to do in the stock market the last couple of years.
Yeah, I understand that, especially last month.
Yeah. Crypto too, it's all down.
But I think that answers the majority of my because if you're going to get it in bulk, that's going to answer the majority of my next question, because that's going to be the issue of getting the drivers where they can keep it with them.
Do you do any stored fuel, Rick, or is it all fuel on the road?
No, I've done this for 50-some. I used to have trucks and I sold the diesel motorhome, but I'm just the sales agent. Actually, I'm a freight broker for General Motors, and my freight all goes to Mexico.
Gotcha.
Out of the Midwest. But I represent 3 different companies, and between them 3 companies, they run about 3,000 trucks.
Yeah. So yeah, there's
some of them are owner operators, some of them are company trucks. So there's some company owner operators I could start with.
Yeah, they'll definitely take care of it because they're paying for their own fuel, right?
Yes.
Yep. That's a good way to start.
Yeah. So that's the majority of my questions. Awesome. I thank Anita and Chris, and I appreciate it. And I'll turn it over to somebody else and let them ask their questions. So thank you.
Okay, well, thanks, Rick. And I think between what Chris has said, I am going to kind of go over just a few questions that have been asked, and I want to just reiterate. The question was, can you use too much of the Ffx product in a tank?
Yeah, well, you don't want to go dump that whole bottle in your lawnmower, but really, no, you can't. And I will say that I didn't say during that, when I went through the slides, it's super important on your first 2 or 3 tanks to double dose everything, because that's going to give you results faster depending on how your engine is and how dirty it is, how many miles are on it. So if everybody just double doses, you're going to see improvement much faster, and that gives you more credibility that much quicker.
And so you mentioned lawnmowers. That's the next question. How much of this particular product would you put in a lawnmower? And I think to start with, we've all got 5-gallon gasoline tanks. And so how much would you suggest to put in that 5-gallon tank that then you can put into your lawnmower?
Well, a 5-gallon tank is a 1/16 of an ounce, so not much. But I would just see right here, what's in this bottle right now treats 10 gallons. Let's see, treats 20 gallons.
Okay.
So you really just need a little bit in your 5-gallon tank.
Okay. So, and I guess if you wanted to micro measure that, if you could get some kind of a small apparatus measurement where you can do an 1/8 or a 1/16.
Yeah, you can get an eyedropper or something like that, or the same stuff you give your baby's medicine with. You can make
exactly.
different stuff with that.
And I think you've already covered this question, but it says a company that has a large fleet of trucks that fuel their own bulk plant is wondering if they can purchase Ffx in large quantities, such as a 250-gallon bulk pallet.
So a 55-gallon drum treats 500,000 gallons of fuel, which is a lot of fuel. So the answer's, we can take care of whatever.
Okay. And large quantities are forthcoming. Is that what I'm hearing?
No. Yes.
I got it. Okay. Okay. Are there any red dyes in the Ffx product?
No, and that's a good question, because farm fuel, or that's what we call it here, or tax-free fuel, has red dye in it. And if you're running that in an over-the-road something and they find red dye, and it's a big fine because it's tax-free fuel. So no, you don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Does Ffx help with gelling if you're using the #2 diesel fuel, like in cold weather climates?
Yeah, so it will lower the freeze point a few degrees, but if you live in a climate with gelling issues, you're still going to want to use the same anti-gel you've been using. Yeah. So the answer to that's really no. It won't stop your truck from gelling like a anti-gel product will.
Okay. Can Ffx be used in airplanes?
Yes, it can. Any combustible engine, that's just jet fuel, right? But
Yes.
if you have somebody, at Delta or American Airlines, and it's not going to happen. The FAA will never sign off on any treatment or any additive or anything. So will it work? Yes. Is it legal? No.
And the same will apply then to small aircraft, privately owned airplanes.
Yeah. So actually, there's a few guys that I know that do run in their little Cessnas and their Cubs and their Pipers around here. Some of the farmers that fly around, check their fields, they use it because they treat their bulk tanks and then they keep it in their pickups. And so, yeah, they run it with it. And they actually notice a difference in how fast they can fly because it does give you a little more boost, a little more horsepower.
Okay. My son is a pilot and has his plane. And so we were kind of curious about that. Okay. My truck driver friend has 2 120-gallon tanks on his semi. How much Ffx would it put in each one of those?
So most you put a half a bottle, pretty much half a 4-ounce bottle on each side, but most tanks have a circulatory pump, or more semis that go between the 2 tanks. There's a hose underneath in between them, and there's a pump that circulates the fuel. So you can really just put it in one side.
Okay. So just in one of the tanks then?
Yeah, but if they got that circular, and they all have it, so yeah.
Okay.
If you want to be real particular, you can just put half and half as your fuel on each side, and then it would mix instantly instead of waiting for the tanks to cycle.
Okay. This is more of a comment, but I think you can respond to this. It says, I'm in contact with a large company and they're afraid of trying Ffx because if anything happens to the machine, The expensive part is not the actual repair of the machine, but of the time that it takes that the machine is down because of lack of production. So can you address that question?
Well, then my answer to that is they should really be using it because their machine will go down half as often.
Good response there. Okay.
So if they're really worried about downtime, this will reduce downtime on any combustible engine you put it in.
Good, very good point there. Okay, Erin, I'm going to turn it over to you. Do you have a couple of questions now? And then I see Vicki has her hand raised.
Yeah, one of them was I've got guys that are race car guys and race bike people. So they're using like 114 octane in their things. So what's my selling point to those people, and how can they use that?
So those types of guys, they don't care about fuel economy. They're not, but you can tell them they're going to get 8 to 10% more horsepower out of their race buggy, and they're not going to be able to detect it in their fuel, because most sanctioned race things, you can't use any, again, additives, because it gives you nuts, like using, supplements as a professional athlete. They don't want you to give you an unfair advantage, which is true even so hill climb snowmobiling is a big thing here. One of my good friends is a 2-time world champion hill climber for Arctic Cat. And every time he won it, this was in his tank. He actually had his sled wrapped with it. So 2 cycles, 4 strokes, it don't matter. It does give you more horsepower, and that's what those guys are going to be looking for.
So they wouldn't lower their octane; they would still run their 114, right?
Oh yeah, because they're still going to get all that much more power, right?
Right.
So they're going to if it's all about race, run the hottest fuel you can, add this into it, and go whip everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Erin. Okay, Vicki, if you'll unmute her, please. Erin. Okay.
Hi, Anita and Chris. First of all, thank you for doing this call. This is stuff that I've been really thinking about, because my husband is an over-the-road trucker for a moving company, and he's really skeptical about putting things in his truck. He only runs Lionel or whatever stuff, I don't know what he said he puts in his truck. So he's been a little leery on this. My question actually was just answered, because my question was, he has 250-gallon tanks and he fills both sides. So would he put it in both sides or one side? So, but you did address that just recently with the 120-gallon 2-tank things. So that was my answer, but I wanted to say thank you so much for doing this, because I think this is going to help us a lot, because I'm trying to get him to reach out to all of his coworkers and other truck drivers that he knows. So I appreciate you,
Sure.
Chris.
Yep,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Okay, Darren, you've got your hand held next. So there you go.
Thanks, Chris, very much.
But-
I had on my initial YouTube, Anita and I had a manufacturer that's does marine and automotive and trucks and so forth. Does the company have an engineer on staff? Well, they obviously have the documentation, and or can we get access to the engineers that actually manufactured it, just to have their engineers talk to our engineers?
So no, we do not have engineers on staff, mainly because this stuff was engineered 50 years ago and has been working ever since. So there really is no reason to have them. We already know, but we do have outside companies in the past that did these carbon mass balance tests and things that I was talking about. And we did allow people to contact them, but then they ended up becoming, they had to hire people just to answer the phone calls that our reps were sending in. So we had to cut that off. But we do have a ton of testing that's available we can share with people.
Okay, great. If it's a manufacturer, though, I guess that would be an exception and go through Josh for that.
The manufacturer will say the same thing because they just get bombarded with calls all day. We actually had, I'll say this, it's a smaller call. We had Texas A&M do a big test on it way back in 2008, and we got the results and published them, and they sued us to take it off our website because of how many people was calling in and talking to some random person that texts their name and they're filling all these phone calls. So it's real hard to get that information out for people because in the world we're in with direct sales and how many affiliates there are, it just bombards people. And so they hate it.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, we'll figure that out through Josh, because maybe the engineers that the company had access to, so just give them the product and here's the test you need to do, here's the past results, and go from there, kind of thing.
Yeah, and most engineers are pretty happy with that ASTM test because it's a government sanctioned test and they can see that we're not changing fuel spec. And if they're automotive engineers, they're going to go, oh, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I like, there's a big motorcycle meet coming up here in Canada. What's your sales guy and a marketer? What's the best way to approach the bikers in your wisdom?
Same thing, more power.
Okay, they like the power.
Yeah, I mean, the motorbikes get like 50, 60 miles to the gallon. So, you know, they're not real concerned, and their tanks are a few gallons, so they're not real concerned about it. But the more power, and it'll smooth out their ride, which is a big deal for them too. Their mirrors won't vibrate as much on their handlebars, and they can see better out their mirrors and different things like that. So that's how I would approach them.
Has the company ever thought about getting ambassadors? Because that gives credibility. So people that are known truckers, people that are known bikers, people that are known flyers and all that stuff. Have they thought about that? Because that gives
Well, it's the
instant
same thing
credibility.
as influencers with CBD, right? Try to get these people, and then they end up just trying to take over the company, and it doesn't work. But there will be some coming, so hold tight.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for your help.
You betcha.
Thanks, Jaron, for your question. It is at the bottom of the hour. We're going to do Cindy, Mike, and then it says Zoom user. Is that Esther maybe? So go ahead, Cindy, with your question, please. And I think you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron, for that. And thanks, Chris, for being here. I have a question from a major trucking company, and you addressed it somewhat in your previous speech about the regen and the DEF.
Yep.
And their concern was, you know, they were thinking it's going to compete with that. And I heard you talk and say an answer, but it didn't comprehend. Can you put it in terms, or just say it again so that maybe I can understand how to tell them that it doesn't?
All DEF is for is to reduce emissions. A DEF filter is in your exhaust pipe before it goes out. It collects all the hydrocarbons that would have went out without it. And then the DEF, which is the diesel exhaust fluid, sprays in there, burns it at like 2,000 or 3,000 degrees. So those hydrocarbons burn again, and then it lets it go out. So by cleaning up your emissions, your regen is happening less often. So you're actually extending the life through your DPF filter, your diesel particulate filters, as well as how long your diesel exhaust fluid lasts because you're not using it as often. So I guess to say it competes with it, it does, because it cleans the emissions before they have to clean them again.
Okay. I appreciate that. And one other question on the commercial white paper, where you use an example of, you know, if they're consuming 6 million gallons of fuel a year, and then you extrapolate it out and put in the savings gallon per year, fuel costs, Ffx cost. And I noticed that the price per gallon on this case study is $3.80 a gallon. So I'm assuming that if you move it to today's money costs, you know, where in California, we're paying almost $7 a gallon for diesel.
Yep.
Is it the percentages stay the same? Is that correct? Or would
Correct.
they be?
So if we're saving 10%, like we've been talking, which is the best number to talk about, because you're under promising and over delivering at that point. So 10% of 6,600,000. So you take 600,000 times that by your fuel price, which is 7, which is an ungodly number. Then you times that by 10%, and that's your savings, no matter what your fuel cost is. That's how you figure that.
Okay. So the FFX price doesn't really factor into that, right? I mean,
Well, it will as we get bulk stuff rolled out, because it gets cheaper per dose.
but in this case study, is the FFX cost?
The same as it is right now, yes.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay, good. I'm glad I asked.
We've actually
All right.
been able to keep the price the same for 14 years.
Wow. Very impressive. Okay, great. Thank you. That's the end of my question.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. We'll turn it over to Mike B now, if you want to ask your question.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate giving the time. 2 questions. One being, if this goes into the right hands, I mean, availability, how much is on stock? What is looking like for shipping time to get it to these people? And then the second question, do you have any time frame of when the bulk would come into effect? When that would be something as an option versus buying by the current size that's available?
So remind me your first question.
Sorry, I should have waited and asked them separate. The availability, if I.
Availability, yeah. So it's made in America. It's actually, there's no special ingredient in it. It's the chemistry of how materials are mixed at what temperature and what time. That's what makes the chemical reaction happen. So there's no like special ingredient we got to mine to make it work. So the availability is endless. It's made in the USA. Shipping will always be 3 to 5 days. You can ship containers of this across the world. I mean, availability and shipping is not an issue. As far as tell me your second question. Good Lord,
so it's twofold, I guess. When do you have any time frame on when the bulk would be available? And then also, you may have just answered the other portion of this one, but if I needed to order a container's worth of it, I mean, is there a limit on how much you can order or one person can order?
So no, there's no limit. And bulk containers, we already have them. We're just waiting on an announcement from the sea. I guarantee you right now, if you send in an order for 500 drums, it'll be filled this week.
Fantastic.
Okay, thanks there, Rick. Any other questions? Or Mike, any other questions there?
No, thank you.
Okay, good. Okay,
Thanks,
Esther,
Mike.
you're next. We're going to take 6 more minutes so you guys ask your questions fast so we can get everybody in. I've got Martin and Andrew following. So go ahead, Esther.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Chris, for coming on. I always love seeing you. So I wanted to ask about tractors and boats and the big farm equipment. Since I have not received mine yet, how much, or is there a chart that says how much people are supposed to put in these vehicles?
It's the same for every vehicle, whether it's a semi truck, your sports car, your tractor, your train engine. The treat ratio is 1 to 10,000. That's the treat ratio. So 10 milliliters to 100 liters, basically. So no matter what you're doing, it's 1 to 10,000. I don't know if that answers your question, if you don't know ratios and things, but no matter what you put it in, it's always the same treat ratio for every application.
So does that say that on the bottle, or does it come with a sheet when it's delivered? Or
on the bottle, it tells you 1/4 ounce to 20 gallons, which is this bottle. A gallon jug treats 10,000 gallons of fuel, which is real easy to track. And most bulk storage containers on most farms are or even trucking are 10,000 gallon tanks, because a tanker delivers about that. If they're pulling a pump, they can come fill it. So anyway, gallon jugs are what you're going to see a lot of because of that fact.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Very, very good. Okay, Martin, you're next. Aaron, can you get him unmuted? There he is. Okay,
There
go
we go.
ahead.
Sorry, I'm pushing buttons. Hi, Chris and Anita. Actually, I haven't seen you, Chris, except for live.
What's up, buddy?
Two questions for you. I'm obviously the new part of this whole deal and with a good mentor in the next room here. But the questions I'm getting are, why haven't people heard of the product before? So do that one first, and then I'll give you a quick one.
The reason they haven't heard of the product before is, and I don't know what they mean by before, like yesterday. In modern time, and meaning the last 10 years, it's been sold under a different name. When we acquired it in My Daily Choice, we had to rebrand it to us. So that's where FFX came from. So they haven't heard of FFX because that name was created 30 days ago. As far as long-term, it was never put into packages for consumer use until it was only sold by the drum until 2008. It was never repackaged in any other size. The company had their 20 or 30 massive customers around the world. They fulfilled them for decades, made millions and millions of dollars. And then when fuel prices spiked to make it to where it was effective for the average consumer, and by average, I'm even talking trucking companies, because them big mines burn way more fuel than them. The trucking companies do, most of them anyway. So it was only sold in commercial application, which is why most people haven't heard it. It's never been on a store shelf. There's never been a commercial with it. The repackaged smaller stuff that we have now has always been sold through word of mouth. So I guess hopefully that answers their question.
Yeah, and the other one I've got a lot of my neighbours, and sorry about the echoing, I'll have to fix that next time. A lot of the boaters in the area here fill up between 500 and 1,000 gallons at a time. And they're asking for, larger packaging for this.
Just tell them to take their boat out and wide open it across the lake on glass water and see how fast the boat goes. Then tell them to put this in and do it again. And they're going to see right now the product works.
Okay.
I used to have a couple of ski boats myself, and I did that test over and over again. It's pretty cool.
Okay, well, thank you, Martin. Any other quick comment there? Okay, very good. Okay, Andrew, you're the very last person. So what's your question there, please?
I think some of it got, well, first of all, hello guys. I'm new here too. I just signed up Friday night. But I think some of my questions got answered. I was thinking about the marine world, how much testing was done as far as the marine side of it, because there's quite a few guys I know with bigger yachts, and a lot of older boats out there, and that's a big thing this year is the fuel price. So
yeah, so the marine world, especially with them big yachts, looks like you're sitting in a flatbed. You must be in construction or farming or ranching or something, huh?
I'm actually helping my son out today, but my normal everyday thing is, well, I haven't been to work for 2 weeks now for other reasons, but I work on boats.
Oh, gotcha. So a lot of those yachts sit around for a long time. So they're probably already putting stay-bill or something in it to keep their fuel fresh, as well as heat or something like that for demulsifier would be my guess, right?
Most of them do for the winter time. Yeah.
Yeah. So they don't have to do that no more. So now they're actually saving money because they're not buying those two products. And then they're also going to have see an increase in fuel economy as well as more power. So the marine world it's actually really more beneficial there than anywhere else because of the water issues and the rust issues that the marine world gets in their fuel system, and this takes care of all of that.
That was a big one. Plus, those engines are always under power, no matter how fast they're going. They're under power. So
yep.
I have a friend that has a yacht. He has a couple old Detroits in it, and I told him I want to try to do some testing with him sometime, because he gets 2 miles a gallon right now. So
yeah, you definitely shouldn't be in the yachting world if you can't afford $5 fuel.
Well, that's a big thing this year. With the fuel prices going up, everybody is, they don't want to run them because it costs them a couple grand to go 100 miles,
Yep, I get it.
So if you can save them even 10%, they're going to be looking at, wow, If I can see.
Yeah, I mean, if they can save $200 to run out to the cove, that's pretty good.
That's a big deal. So, all right, yeah, that answered my questions. Thank you, sir.
Awesome.
Okay, well, thanks, Mike. Chris, thank you so very, very much. You have given us a great overview here. We just want to say thank you, thank you. Do you have any closing words here that you want to say?
Yeah, so I wasn't prepared, but I'm never prepared. There's always opportunity in crisis, right?
Yes.
I mean, most millionaires have, I would say 90% of them have found a problem and created a solution. And with what we have with My Daily Choice, not only with our health and wellness program, but with this Fuel Faxtor X, is there's a crisis right now. There's a lot of people that can't afford to pump the gas they used to be able to pump to even go to work. And there's a lot of people looking for a way to work from home. So we have both of those answers. One of the most Googled things since the pandemic hit 2 years ago is, how do I make money from home? How do I make money online? So there's a massive opportunity for us as affiliates at My Daily Choice right now. It just happens that we have a product that everybody's looking for that nobody else has. And if you take advantage of that right now, not tomorrow, starting right now, you're gonna see some incredible results, not just at the fuel pump, but in your own personal bank accounts. I mean, if you look at Josh and I, for example, this product right here is what made both of us millionaires 12 years ago, 14 years ago. And now it's coming back and it's everybody else's turn. And I can tell you right now, if this high school dropout rancher farm kid from Idaho, I live in a town of 220 people, can go out and change and do that with this product, everybody on this call has got a really great opportunity in front of them. Because if I can do it, I promise you, you can. So I'll leave you with that, because, you know, success loves speed. Get out in front of it. I promise you, your next door neighbor is eventually going to hear about Fuel Faxtor X. It may as well be from you. I get a kick out of it all the time. I see, you know, we go to these conventions and stuff, and they're handing out awards, and somebody's rank advanced and getting their $1 million 7-figure earner deal or whatever, and they're up on the stage crying, and then somebody in the audience happens to be crying, but for completely different reasons, because they've known that person since high school, but they forgot to talk to them. So my point is, closed mouths don't get fed. The world's looking for this. It's so easy to talk about saving people money on fuel. And yes, you're going to get all these questions, and is it going to do this? Is it going to do that? And I will say this too, because there's a lot of people on here talking about bulk fuel companies. The easiest thing to do is get the person in charge of buying the fuel, whether it's the owner, the CFO, whatever, to buy it, just get $59 bottle, run it in their personal vehicle. Because once they see it work there, they know it's going to work everywhere else. You know, if they go buy 10 drums of it and they're not doing appropriate tests, they may not see the benefits. So the best thing to do is get them on board with their personal vehicle. And then it's real easy conversation to have about their fleets.
Good, Chris. Thank you so very much. And thank all of you for being out here today. I'm going to turn the recorder off.